The MMA Exchange.
Guys, the underdog JDM is the new welterweight champion, the third Australian champion in UFC history. What he did was from round one, he was putting the pressure, stuffing the takedowns. His footwork was so good, and he was landing the jab, landing the 1-2, and didn't overthink Belal's takedown threat. And what we saw from Belal was he actually wasn't shooting that many takedowns. He was more trying to blast doubles, but because of the footwork of JDM, it just wasn't landing. It wasn't doing much. I was surprised that it was on two judges' scorecards that it was equal heading into the fifth round. So if Belal won the fifth round, he would have won. I actually had it 4-1 JDM just because of pure damage. And even when Belal did take him down, he didn't do much with it, and JDM was able to get back up onto his feet. So I think the 12-month layoff definitely did help him reset, regroup. He was working on his wrestling and his grappling with Craig Jones, and I think that's what made the difference. And as well, him breaking his arm actually did him a favor because he wasn't as focused on his boxing and on his kickboxing. He was more focused on his footwork, and that's what he was doing for the first few months of training while his arm was broken. But he was actually a $3 underdog on the sports bet lines, and the MMA Exchange predicted a round 4 TKO. He nearly got it in round 5, but I'm glad that JDM got it done. Now, what's next for him? Islam Makhachev, the 155-pound champ and the #1 ranked pound-for-pound fighter in the UFC, is going to go up and try to become a double champ. I do think that JDM wins just because of the size difference, and if Belal, who is much bigger and stronger than Islam Makhachev, isn't able to take down JDM, I don't see how Islam will do it. But there was a few circumstances with JDM when he was on all fours or he was in a bit of an awkward position, and that's where I think Islam Makhachev can capitalize. But if JDM continues to improve and to tweak a few things, I believe he'll be able to get it done. He's only 28 years old, just heading into his prime, and he's beat a well-rounded fighter like Belal. What Belal did well in this fight was he was putting the pressure in the late rounds, but it was not enough. I don't know how to put this into words. So excited because he was such a massive underdog, a young guy from Perth. He doesn't like to talk trash, but I think this has now elevated him. He's now seeing the benefits of becoming a champ, and we are going to finally see some violence in the welterweight division from a champion. On to the co-main event, guys. We had Valentina Shevchenko versus Manon Fiorot. I did predict Valentina to win by decision, but I didn't think it'd be as close. Round 1 was pretty dominant. We saw that Shevchenko was able to capitalize and counter the kicks of Manon Fiorot, but then round 2, Fiorot started to do more grappling, more takedowns, enter the clinch. What she did a lot of is clinching, pressing up against the cage and landing knees. And I actually thought, potentially Valentina Shevchenko can lose if it goes to the scorecards. And I was very so-so. Ultimately, I did have it 3-2 going, to the judges, but we did see a few. We did see a robbery in the Ian Cutelaba fight with the judging, and that's where I was getting a bit nervous. But I'm glad Valentina Shevchenko got it done. All right, guys. Now Jose Aldo versus Amin Zahabi. Man, I don't know. I had the first 2 rounds for Jose Aldo, and then round 3 could have gone either way. I definitely did think that round 1 definitely was for Jose Aldo. And then round 3, he fucking soccer kicked him twice, dropped him, and then dropped him before that with a punch. So he dropped Amin Zahabi 3 times in that round, damaged him really badly. But then with 3 minutes on the clock, Jose Aldo gassed. Amin Zahabi wrestled him, took him down and started landing elbows, which split the middle of his forehead open. This, I don't know. I'm not going to complain and say it's robbery because it's not. It was just a really close fight. But when we look at damage purely, I think that the flurry and that sequence where Jose Aldo dropped Amin Zahabi 3 times was more damage than what Amin Zahabi did on the ground. But we see Jose Aldo retire. What I find, what pisses me off about the UFC is that they don't do retirement packages for people that actually deserve it. For example, when Stipe Miocic retired after losing to John Jones, they knew he was going to retire. And so what did they do? Nothing. They didn't even give him a retirement package. But who did they give a retirement package video to? The Karate Hottie, and also Anthony Smith. Like, they never touched gold. They weren't even champions. They never did anything special in their division. But you have legends like Jose Aldo, Stipe Miocic, who was the heavyweight GOAT of the UFC. They didn't get these retirement packages. And an argument against that is, well, no one knew that they were going to retire. But I feel that once you know that these fighters are getting older, I mean, Aldo retired, then he came back. You know, he came off a loss. Now he's had another loss. You sort of like, you didn't know that he'd lose against Ayman Zahabi, but you should have something in the background where, look, maybe it's not a full 5-minute video, but something, you know, a minute, 2-minute, just to pay tribute to the legend Jose Aldo and how he paved the way for the lighter divisions. But look, Ayman Zahabi, great win. He did call out Marlon Vera. I think that's a great fight, but I believe that Marlon would win that. Before that, guys, we had Natalia Silva versus Alexa Grasso. I did pick Natalia Silva to win by a dominant decision, and that she did. We saw that in round 1, that she was faster, more agile, landed clean calf kicks, and against the heavy boxing style of Alexa Grasso that did cause problems, she was able to counter her very effectively, ultimately winning her the decision. I think what's next is that Valentina Shevchenko, her next opponent would be Natalia Silva, and I actually give the edge to Natalia Silva because we saw a few holes in Shevchenko's game and how easily she was in accepting the clinch and kick scenarios against Manon Fiorot. And then, guys, for the opener of the main event, Benoit Saint-Denis versus Kyle Prepelec. Now, even though we all knew that Benoit Saint-Denis was going to win on Sportsbet, I think Kyle Prepelec was a $9.50 underdog. I was kind of disappointed in Benoit Saint-Denis because you have a guy like Kyle Prepelec who his defense was so poor, and instead of BSD jabbing, finding an opening and capitalizing, he took him down, which is fine, but he didn't straight away aim for a submission. You know that there's weaknesses within Prepelec's game. Your strength is with grappling. He should have made it much more easier. For a guy like Benoit Saint-Denis to be ranked 13th in one of the most strongest divisions in the UFC, I don't think that was enough. Like, I don't know, I thought I'd see, you know, a first round finish, but nonetheless, he gets it done. I think he should rebook the Yoel Alvarez fight or have him fight someone that's within 10 to 15 ranking. I don't think he deserves to go up any more than that. But guys, a quick rundown of my picks that I put into the description of my prediction video. Alright, so obviously I picked Jack Della Maddalena. That was one. Picked Valentina Shevchenko. I didn't get the Jose Aldo one. I picked Natalia Silva and then also Benoit Saint-Denis. Now, for the earlier fights, I did pick Charles Radke. I've got that. I lost that one. Jasmine Jasudavicius versus Jessica Andrade. I did pick Jasudavicius. Ion Cutelaba versus Matestas Bukauskas. I will go into a bit of this. I thought that even though, like, regardless, just looking at it unbiasedly, I believe that Cutelaba won that. But they ended up giving 30-27 to Modestas Bukauskas. Even my dad was shocked at the scorecards. We all believe that Ion Cutelaba did enough to win. He was damaged, landing more damage, being a bit more smart with how he approached the fight. He was landing since round 1, and so we thought that was enough. But this is what I sort of get annoyed about. I feel that judges, and I said this on TikTok, judges, should have to be in front of reporters and get asked questions and that kind of stuff. We didn't hear a word out of these guys. They judge the fight and that's it. I believe that they should, go to a commission or have to explain themselves in front of people as to why they scored it like this. My question would be, how could you give Modestas Bukauskas all 3 rounds when clearly at least one round could have been scored for Ion Cutelaba? But I believe that he won 29-28. But yeah, he lost that one. Navajo Sterling versus Ivan Erslan. I picked Navajo Sterling. Marc-Andre Barrieu versus Bruno Silva. I did pick Andre Barrieu. It was quite scary seeing Bruno Silva head out of the octagon in a stretcher, but it's because he did complain about neck pain. They were doing scans on his neck, back, and face. Hopefully he's alright. I think he should be cut from the UFC. Since his fight with Pereira, I think that was like career-altering damage. And so, yeah, I believe that he should be cut from the UFC. Good job, Barrio. Good knockout. Before that, we had Daniel Santos versus Ji Young Lee. I picked Santos just because I thought that he'd be able to be a bit more quicker, use his striking more effectively. His specialty is Muay Thai. Walking out, I wasn't, too confident because I did see that he had some tub on him. He had a little belly fat, but hopefully, if he continues within the featherweight division, he can dial that in. But Young was much bigger, more muscular, but I just don't think that his defense was there. And with a Muay Thai striker like Santos, who I thought actually improved his game, it wasn't a good stylistic matchup. I don't know why I don't rate anyone. Eddie Cha. Anyone that trains with Eddie Cha, I don't know why, they just don't win. Like, they don't amount to anything. But I think that, Korean trainer, Korean fighter, but I feel that these Asian fighters would try and, go to America, go to Europe, or maybe even Australia or New Zealand to try and get a different look, because we don't see many of them in the top 15, top 10, or top 5. And then for the opener of the whole event, we had Beksat Almakhan versus Brad Katona. I did pick Beksat, and he did end up knocking out Brad Katona. Guys, that is the wrap up for UFC 315. Congratulations to JDM on making history as the 3rd UFC Australian champion, and actually first time in history that Australia has had 2 UFC champions. Guys, tune in to my next video. Thank you.